They've told us that aging means slowing down, giving up, and fading quietly into the background. But what if everything they said about getting older was wrong? You see, there are these little myths, ideas that have been repeated so many times. Most people start to believe them without question. They sneak into conversations, advertisements, even doctors' offices. And before you know it, you're living by rules that were never true to begin with. But here's the thing, age doesn't define you, not your value, not your energy, and definitely not your future. In this video, we're going to pull the curtain back on 5 of the biggest lies you've ever been told about aging. Not to scare you, but to free you. Because the moment you stop accepting these myths, that's when everything starts to change. Let's start with the first one, and it might surprise you. Older people can't learn new things. Ever heard that before? Maybe someone said it to you in passing. Or worse, maybe you've said it to yourself. I'm too old to start over. I'm too old to learn this. That's for younger folks. But here's the truth. Your brain doesn't just stop working at a certain age. In fact, research shows that older adults are not only capable of learning new skills, they actually bring something younger people don't have. Wisdom, life experience, patience. When you combine that with curiosity, you're unstoppable. There was a woman I met not long ago, Marlene. She was 72 when she bought her first smartphone. And believe me, she hated it at first. She said the buttons were too small, the apps too confusing. But instead of giving up, she set a goal. I want to FaceTime my grandkids without asking for help. Now, she texts, video calls, even follows recipe blogs. She told me, it's like my world got bigger instead of smaller. That's the point. You're never too old to expand your world. You're just one decision away from proving that to yourself. Let's move to the second myth, and this one is subtle but dangerous. It's normal to feel lonely as you age. Normal? Maybe, but acceptable? Never. Loneliness isn't a condition of getting older. It's a signal, a sign that something needs attention, not resignation. Think about this. When you were younger, you had circles, work friends, neighbors, school events, and slowly, as the years pass, those circles shrink. Kids move out, friends relocate, some relationships fade. So yes, loneliness can happen, but you are not meant to live that way. I once spoke to a gentleman named Carl, 79 years old. He said, after my wife passed, the silence in the house got so loud, I forgot what my own voice sounded like. But then one day, he walked into the local community center just to look. He walked out with a calendar full of meetups, everything from book clubs to bingo to walking groups. Now, he never eats lunch alone. Connection doesn't stop at 60 or 70 or 90. It changes shape, sure, but it's still possible. And often, all it takes is one brave step outside your comfort zone. Which brings me to myth number 3. And this one might be the most harmful of all. After a certain age, it's all downhill. Let that sit for a moment. How many people say that as if it's a joke, but really, deep down they believe it? Here's what I want to say about that. Aging is not a decline. It's a shift. Yes, your body changes. Your schedule looks different. But that doesn't mean your life becomes less valuable. If anything, this chapter, right now, is where you get to rewrite the story. No deadlines, no distractions, no pretending to be someone you're not. I've met people who took their first art class at 65, learned guitar at 73, started dating again at 80. One woman I know published her first book at 86. Can you imagine? A debut author in her late 80s. She told me, I had stories in me for decades. I finally gave myself permission to let them out. You don't age out of joy. You don't age out of meaning. What you age out of are excuses. And when you stop believing the lie that everything good is behind you, you start realizing just how much life is still in front of you. We've already taken down 3 big myths, and we're just getting started. Now that we peel back the first few myths, let's talk about one that quietly affects millions of people, even if they don't realize it. The belief that physical decline is inevitable after 60. Let's be honest. Yes, things change. Your knees might creak more than they used to. You may not recover from a long walk as quickly as you once did. But that's not the same as saying your body is just destined to fall apart. That belief, that's what keeps people stuck. See, what most people don't know is that the biggest threat to your physical health after 60 isn't age. It's inactivity. The more you sit, the more you weaken. The less you use your muscles, the faster they atrophy. And here's the kicker. Your body starts believing what you believe. If you expect it to fail, it probably will. But if you treat it like it still has strength and purpose, it responds. I met a man named Harold, 74, who used to be a marathon runner. After retirement, he stopped moving, said he earned his rest. But then one day, he tripped walking to the mailbox and couldn't get back up without help. That scared him more than anything. He didn't hire a fancy trainer. He didn't join a gym. He just started walking again, first to the end of the driveway, then around the block. Eventually, he added some stretching, a little strength training, and even balance work. 6 months later, he said, I feel 10 years younger than I did last year, not because he found a fountain of youth, but because he stopped believing the myth that aging meant weakness. The truth is, your body is listening. Even now, and when you feed it movement, purpose, and care, it shows up for you in ways you didn't think possible. No, you might not climb mountains anymore, but you can still dance, still garden, still carry groceries without wincing. That kind of strength, it's built, not borrowed. Let's move to the fourth myth now, and this one might hit close to home. It's the idea that you have nothing left to contribute, that after the kids are grown, the career has ended, and the spotlight has moved elsewhere. You're just supposed to quietly step aside. But let me ask you something. Who decided that? Who gets to say when your value expires? Because every time you share a story with your grandchild, you're contributing. Every time you give someone advice based on your lived experience, you're giving more than money ever could. And every time you choose to show up, to volunteer, to listen, to simply be present, you're proving that your presence still matters. One woman I spoke with, Gloria, told me she felt invisible after retirement. Her phone didn't ring much. She missed the feeling of being needed. But instead of retreating, she signed up to read at her local elementary school. Now, every Tuesday, she sits with kids who hang on her every word. She said, they don't care how old I am. They just care that I show up. And that's the truth. The world isn't looking for perfect people. It's looking for engaged ones, for people who still care, who still show up, who still give something of themselves. Your worth isn't in what you did. It's in who you are and who you're still becoming. And if there's any part of you that's doubting that right now, if you've been feeling like your best years are behind you, or that your voice doesn't carry the same weight, it's time to shake that lie loose. Because what you have to give today might be exactly what someone else needs to hear, or feel, or learn. And that kind of contribution, it never expires. We've already uncovered 4 myths, and with each one, I hope you're starting to feel just a little lighter, a little more hopeful, a little more ready to push back against the quiet messages that try to shrink you. There's one more to go. So far, we've tackled the myths about learning, loneliness, physical decline, and purpose. But there's one last belief that holds more people back than any wrinkle, gray hair, or stiff joint ever could. It's the myth that says, it's too late to change, too late to try, too late to matter. Let that sink in for a second. Because if you ever caught yourself thinking, I should have done this years ago, or that ship has sailed, or even why bother now, you're not alone. That little voice gets louder as we get older, especially when we're staring down things we never got around to doing. But here's the truth that most people don't realize until it's too late. The clock might be ticking, but you're still here. And as long as you're here, it is not too late. There's a story I always think about when this comes up. A man named Samuel, 82 years old, who sat down one afternoon and started painting. He'd never touched a brush before. His granddaughter had left a canvas on the table, and on a whim, he picked it up. That one painting led to a second, then a third, and within a year, his walls were covered with color. He said, I didn't know I had anything left to discover. Turns out, I hadn't even scratched the surface. Nobody claps for you when you start something late. Nobody throws you a party for finally facing your fears at 70 or 80 or beyond. But here's the beautiful thing. The applause doesn't matter. The freedom does. The way your heart feels when you stop living by the calendar and start living by curiosity. People will tell you it's too late to start a business, too late to fall in love, too late to write that book or take that trip or make that change. But those people, they're watching the clock. You're watching your life. And those are two very different things. Think about how many moments you've already lived through. Heartbreaks, triumphs, losses, first times, last times. And here you are, still standing, still breathing, still growing. What you've overcome already is proof that you're still capable of more. And look, I get it. It's not just about age. It's about fear. The fear of looking foolish. The fear of failure. The fear of trying and realizing you're not as strong or fast or sharp as you once were. But here's the thing about fear. It doesn't disappear with age. It just wears different clothes. And the only way to shrink it is to walk straight through it. I once asked a woman at a senior writing workshop, she was 76 at the time, why she was finally writing her memoir after decades of keeping it to herself. She looked at me and said, "Because if I don't tell my story now, who will?" That line never left me. There are stories in you, too. Maybe not for a book, but for your family, your neighbors, the young ones who need your wisdom. There are still choices you haven't made, still doors you haven't opened, still mornings waiting for you to show up with the kind of courage only someone with your life experience can bring. The myth of too late is the most dangerous one because it convinces you to sit still while your heart keeps whispering, move. And when we listen to that whisper, when we tune out the noise of society and say, "I'll try anyway," something shifts. You stop measuring your days by what you've lost and start measuring them by what you can still gain. You realize that living well doesn't mean chasing youth. It means chasing meaning. You realize that fulfillment doesn't end with retirement. Sometimes that's exactly when it begins. You realize that you're not running out of time. You're finally free to use it the way you want to. So the next time that myth shows up in your mind, when it whispers, "You missed your chance," I want you to answer with this: "I'm still here. And that means I still can." And that might be the most powerful truth of all. We've unraveled some of the biggest myths about aging, the ones that quietly convince us to shrink, to give up, to accept a smaller life than we deserve. And if you've made it this far, I hope you're starting to realize that those myths, they don't belong to you anymore. Because here's the truth: aging isn't a curse. It's a privilege, one not everyone gets. And while the world may try to paint it as a slow decline, the reality is this chapter, this moment right now, holds just as much possibility as any you've lived before. Yes, the mirror might reflect new lines, the calendar might show more years behind you than ahead, but age doesn't limit your worth. It reveals it. With every wrinkle, there's a lesson. With every gray hair, a story. And every day you wake up, you've got another chance to write the ending you want. There's a quiet dignity in refusing to let stereotypes decide who you are, in choosing to be active when others expect you to sit still, in daring to speak up when people expect you to stay quiet, in choosing joy even in the face of loss. That kind of courage, that's not youthful. That's ageless. You know, I've met people in their 80s who are more alive than some folks in their 30s. It's not because of luck or perfect health. It's because they decided not to let the number define the narrative. They chose to live out loud, to be curious, to stay connected, to keep growing, even when the world said, "Aren't you done by now?" But here's the thing: you're never done. You are still capable of laughter that shakes the room, of conversations that change someone's day, of love. Yes, love. Whether the friendship that sparks something new or a romance that reminds you that hearts don't age the way bodies do. You're still capable of starting again, of taking better care of yourself. Not because you try to avoid aging, but because you're finally ready to honor the body that's carried you this far. You're capable of healing old wounds, of reconnecting with people you miss, of saying, "I forgive you," or "I forgive me," and meaning it. You're even capable of dreaming. Maybe not the same dreams you had at 20, but the kind of dreams that are deeper, richer, rooted in wisdom and resilience. The kind of dreams that say, "I may be older, but I'm still becoming." And that's what I want to leave you with today. You are still becoming. You're not stuck in your story. You're not trapped by your past. You're not too late, too tired, or too old to matter. You matter more now than ever because you carry something no one else does: lived experience. And that experience, that's not baggage. That's your gift. So whether today is a quiet day or a big one, whether you're surrounded by people or sitting alone in your kitchen, hear this: you are not invisible. You are not done. You are not defined by what you can no longer do, but by how fiercely you still choose to live. If this message touched you today, I hope you'll share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us, what myth have you let go of? Or better yet, what truth are you choosing instead? And if you haven't already, take a second to like this video and subscribe. Not just because it helps the channel, but because it tells the world that this kind of conversation matters. That voices like yours deserve to be heard. That aging, done with courage and heart, is something worth celebrating. So here's to you, to your story, to your strength, to your second chances, to your joy, to your beautiful, messy, powerful, unfinished life. Here's to living your best years, right now. And if nobody told you this today, I'm proud of you. Keep going. You're doing better than you think.